All right, top of the afternoon to you all. Happy Merry Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Ramadonica to whatever you happen to celebrate. If you do, this is Scott Schertzen alongside Mr. Obi Spencer, Mr. JD Walker, and special guest Mr. Ryan O'Regan, and this is the Sports Den. Welcome to Spanglish Sports World on Zingo TV channel 250. Kindly remember to download the Zingo TAE app on the app stores of iOS and Android devices. When you download, make sure to rate and leave a comment. Both apps are free. Zingo TV is, by the way, also available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and all smart TVs 2016 forward. Gentlemen, how are we today?
Great. Thanks for asking.
Oh, no problem. So we're basically, most of us are decked out in our little Christmas setup here.
Trying to feel a little festive this year.
He wins for Bob Ross. Anytime you have anything Bob Ross, I think that automatically just circumvents what anyone else brings to the table. So respect to the Bob Ross happy little trees or happy little candy cane shirt.
Obi's got an impressive jacket and hat. So,
I'll tell you what. I'll put the hood up. I'll go all green. I'll be the Grinch. This is as close as you're gonna get from me,
dude. It's fine. Listen, it's all good on my side. You know what? I've noticed a lot of people are just not getting into the Christmas spirit right now, and I've had a lot of people say it. I am not going to be that guy. I'm going to refuse. I'm going to fight tooth and nail to keep the holiday spirit going. So if I got to dress up like a doofus on air, I'm happy to do it. But all right, we got a bunch.
Wait, are you saying I'm dressed as a doofus? Because
you pull this look off because you got the bowler. You have an ability to pull that off. Me, I've got a Santa Claus on my sweater. There is no way I could look badass wearing this, and I'm okay with that. You know, that shirt over there works. Your outfit works because it's how it works with the entire aesthetic that you have with the facial hair. You can pull off that. Me, I just look like a dweeb, and I'm okay with that.
So what you're saying is you need to grow out the facial hair.
Dude, I'd like to. Unfortunately, health insurance, believe it or not, does not keep me, prevents me sometimes from having to be able to do that. But irrespective of that, I can talk for a week and a half there. But we are instead going to be talking a little Logan Paul and a little bit of Woodley today. We've actually brought in Mr. Ryan O'Regan because normally we talk about this kind of stuff on Tales from the Film Set, our sister show in this case, to which he is also a host. But he is somebody that watched that entire fight. He is somebody that is well versed in the world of boxing and wrestling, and he is someone that has an unbridled, uninhibited opinion on that fight. And so, with further ado, I'm going to roll it over to you, and I'm going to open up to you guys as you see fit. Ryan, give us some thoughts and give us basically how you're doing right now.
I fear for all humanity. How can you watch that fight and take boxing seriously from here on out? Like, look, being what it is, all right, obviously Woodley's entire career is these two fights, and obviously his UFC lineage. But when the second fight pretty much goes almost exactly as the first one does, with him dropping like the meme that he is, how are you supposed to take anything that the Pauls do seriously, and anything that boxing does seriously from here on out? Because this has now set the precedent for this stuff to become more of a sideshow than the sport has ever been. And that's hurtful because at some point, boxing was like the prestige fighting. Before UFC, before wrestling became prominent, boxing was the thing. And now it's pretty much gone the way of all the other sideshow gimmicks. And the fact that Jake Paul is still undefeated astounds me. I know it's exhibitions and what you want to call the records, whatever it is. But as far as the lay fan would see it, he keeps knocking them out. And oh, my head. Oh, my poor head.
I want to open this up to either one of you guys. Whichever one you want to go first.
I disagree utterly and completely. I haven't watched any of the Jake Paul fights or any of the Paul brothers fights because I understand what they are. Most of the time when you are coming up in boxing, nobody knows who the heck you are or what you're doing. You're getting your face pounded in against much lesser opponents, building your way up to a respectable 15-1, 16-0 type record, and nobody knows who these tomato cans you are fighting are. But you got your face pounded in and didn't get paid. The Pauls are famous enough to get paid while they get good and learn to box. He's got to resist the urge to not fight somebody who can totally destroy him in a legit match and start putting losses on him so he can't get a title shot. If his intention is to actually be a boxer, which I believe it is, he's doing it the most brilliant way. He's getting big time fights to learn to box against opponents that aren't up to him. He's getting through the traditional gatekeepers and using famous people and getting paid to build up to a legit title fight. And I think it's brilliant, and I think it's going to save the sport, because just like UFC had its tough competitions, it puts the other guys on the screen, it puts the other guys in your head so that you can root for guys as they come up, and when guys get stopped because they're not good enough, you know who they are, and you saw them rise up, as opposed to being told, here's two guys, one's 20-0, one's 22-2, and that's the first time you heard of the 22-2 guy who's the number one contender, because everyone else you fought you never heard of. So I think it's brilliant, and I think the rest of boxing needs to follow suit, and there are going to be other guys who are going to, maybe he'll lose to somebody who we've never heard of, who's a legit boxer when he's got 10 wins before he gets a title shot. But I think it's going to give another legit boxer a shot or two before they get, I like it. I think it's going to only help the sport. I'm sorry.
But you're honestly telling me that Jake Paul gives a damn about the sport of boxing.
Ryan, I want to hold you. Give JT a shot. He's been very, very patient right now. So let him roll, and then I promise to come back to you immediately.
Fair.
You're saying it as if boxing wasn't already a sideshow and a complete joke to begin with. I mean, Floyd Mayweather. I mean, you say, oh, Jake Paul is made 20. This is in pounds, so 25 million pounds. That's roughly 32 million US. Just for showing up, essentially. I mean, the Paul brothers are just a symbol of what is wrong with boxing. What is, they make all other YouTube. They are pathetic YouTube streamers who somehow have a sizable following. Yet I don't get it. I've never understood any of this. And as long as people are still dumb enough to keep buying these pay-per-views to the tune of what, $90 a pop? How much are they charging?
Ryan, how much did you pay for that?
Yeah, at least I can honestly say I didn't buy the pay-per-view. I went to the local bar and restaurant, and I used my money properly towards the establishment. Yeah, I feel bad for them spending the money.
Good on you for supporting local business, because that's really the only good thing that comes out of this. It is insulting to fighters coming up who have to fight the tomato cans for no money. But as long as there's money to be had, they will do it. I mean, Floyd Mayweather essentially made an entire career out of doing what Jake Paul is doing, of ducking anybody else of any kind of quality until they were already past their prime. And he goes down as an undefeated fighter because of it. Paul is trying to do the same thing, while not fighting any actual boxers, and he's made $30 million and counting doing this, and it's going to continue until people stop. And just as long as there's money to be had by somebody, and good for Jake Paul to take advantage of this system and milk every dollar out of it that they can. I do not begrudge people for doing what they can to make money, and people are willing to give it to them. That is the part that I just do not understand.
What I think in this case here, let me for 1 second. What I think in this case, it's more of a sign of the times than it is the sign of the sport. I remember actually a few years ago, Dave Grohl had talked about the fact that part of the problem that exists in television right now is that everybody thinks the key to success, in music is to go on The Voice, American Idol or something like that. And he's like, I come from an era, the way you're supposed to do it is you're supposed to get together with some people, you go into a garage and you suck for years until you break your way out. People are assuming that the way to success is to land something, on a 1,000,000-to-1 kind of a shot. And it's more, I'm finding this right now with what's happening with Jake Paul, is that people are seeing this and figuring this is the way it's supposed to be. And in the process, I think I agree with both of you guys right now. I think what it's doing is this is going to be the new normal for boxing. But yes, it does, I think, sully what traditional boxers have done, where you're starting to see a blend of Instagram, YouTube stars working their way into mainstream. There was something on Disney. I saw Disney the other day. It was some show with Markiplier, Mark Rober, Matt Pat, and a few of the other YouTubers that are out there that are well known. They're on Disney Plus with their own show because they're starting to see a blend there where you have people that have a following already saying, I'm doing this. And then boom, how much money does pay-per-view make off it? So
and they're also raising money for charity and doing good things in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Jake Paul does nothing except enrich himself.
For now, who knows what the future may hold with that? His personality may change, but yeah, I see your point there.
Yeah, I'm skeptical.
Listen, people can change over time. Who knows?
They can.
Taxes will do that to a man.
What's that?
Taxes will do that to a man.
Oh yeah, yeah. Get that tax break. Start donating to charity to keep that number down. But I mean, Ryan, I'm going to turn this over to you in a sec. But I get where you're coming from, where the traditional what boxing used to be has become more of an amateur sport now for easy, cheap ratings for whatever TikTok, Instagram star wants to go at it. I mean, you look at some of the people that are on here. I mean, a lot of them were, Woodley, there was some decent fighters in there. There were some decent, basically some decent fights. But honestly, the fight against Nate Robinson was a slaughter. But it made a lot of money. And that's what it comes down to at the end of the day. It's all about how you're going to be able to make money. What Mayweather made $100 million on that fight. And he came out and basically said, and I remember we talked about it here. He literally just said, yeah, I just did it for the quick bank and I knew you guys were going to pay. And they did. And he was dead right. And I mean, there were pages on Twitter that had the fight unofficially on Twitter that had 27,000 viewers via Twitter on some dude's page, somehow legally or otherwise, that were pulling in 27,000 viewers on Twitter alone, not counting whatever was made on pay-per-view. And that's the new norm. So I'm sorry, Ryan, go ahead.
Okay. I've calmed myself down a bit, but
in with the good air, out with the bad.
No,
the whole thing with the viewership and everything.
I know it's tough.
I understand the appeal of wanting to watch the match because at this point you've gotten yourself almost into a narrative that people will watch the matches just to see who is the person who finally does knock out Jake Paul, which almost lends too much legitimacy to the idea that more of these matches have been fixed than, say others in the grand scheme of things because they're working up the story. They're working up the presentation of, oh, nobody can get me. I'm undefeated. Almost every knockout in every single match I've had. No one's going to get me. And he's going to go against people who is going to keep that narrative going. But the problem I have more so, and this goes back to the Mayweather mention that you had, the fact that Mayweather was able to back up his credentials. He was a showboater, yes. He was a businessman, yes. But he had the capability, he had the skill to back up his claims. Mm-hmm. Now, anybody that watched that match the other night, you would see Woodley was trying to control the flow of the match. He did it sloppily with all the hugs, sure, but he was controlling the flow of the match. He was making sure that Jake Paul didn't have any kind of momentum throughout those. He could have really just played it by the numbers and won via decision rather than worry about a count out or worry about any kind of a knockout. But for whatever reason, he let his guard down the one time. One good punch from Paul's bloody face dropped like a sack of potatoes. There was no good reason he should have won that match.
They're all fixed. I'm convinced that he's probably paid more to take a dive, on a KO than he is to try. He probably doesn't get paid the same. And
that's the problem that really kills me with this. Now, if you look at something like wrestling obviously scripted. Everybody knows it's scripted. Whether or not it's one person winning or the other, they probably don't know until the day of. It's understandable. It is the showmanship. It's the athleticism. UFC is, on the other hand, they go as legitimate as possible, even though some people maybe, are a little bit more flamboyant than others. Boxing is this weird in between the two where you don't know if it's real, you don't know if it's fake, but certainly when you're watching a match for long enough and all of a sudden it just ends like that, even though there's been no sign of that being possible, it's it blows your mind.
I always thought that Mayweather had the capability, and here's what bothered me about Floyd Mayweather, is the fact that, yes, as you mentioned, Ryan, Mayweather had the talent to back it up. I felt like he didn't use the talent. He could have knocked people out. he just chose not to more often than not, and just sort of ducked around, danced around for 12 rounds and won on points every time. It worked. It was effective, but it always felt like a cop out. And this is now taking that to the next level. Part of why boxing and promoters are doing this because they are desperate. Because while yes, you do have the fighters who are busting their butts to claw their way up, the traditional way, but those do not get views. They do not get dollars. It's fair or not, in the U.S. in particular, when most of the people in the sport are not from the US, that's not going to translate well with American viewers as far as publicity and the drama to try and build a television pay-per-view event. This schmuck just shows up and people throw millions of dollars at him because he can get those eyeballs. So from an economic standpoint, I get it. It doesn't mean it's right, but I understand it. And I think it does show kind of where the sport is, and where we all are with this. In 1950, the three biggest sports in America were baseball, boxing, and horse racing. 2.5 of those are dead, with baseball now finally ready to join the other two. But so we may be seeing some kind of crazy baseball gimmicks, and things like the runner on second base in extra innings may be heading towards that, if depending on who you ask. Now we've beaten the dead horse that is baseball on this show quite a bit, but I just bring that up as an example of just when things aren't working in the traditional way, or how things were always done, you pivot. That's how business and business processes evolve. This is what boxing is evolving to, and I personally think it's gross. But as people are making money, if people are making money off it, it's going to keep happening.
Obi?
Yeah, so a couple things. So first, I want to just go defend Floyd Mayweather. Floyd, I do not watch a lot of boxing. When I discovered MMA, that was kind of the end of boxing for me. I haven't watched a lot of MMA anymore because I'm old and can't stay up that late. But the way you describe Mayweather there, JD, just reminded me of GSP in his prime, who I was a huge fan of George St. Pierre. And he would have so many guys just on the verge of a knockout or a submission. And he was like, I'd rather just make sure I win this fight than go for that flashy move and maybe fall off the top, not get the arm bar, and then be underneath. And from what I understand about Mayweather was basically, you can't hit me, and I can counter, jab you in the face 3 times and back away, and you can't hit me, and I have the stamina to go 12 rounds. So Mayweather not wanting to be exciting versus winning, that's how he put his money in his pocket. So I'm not going to blame him. In terms of gimmicks, that's the other thing we're talking about. Is this gimmicky? And is this gimmick going to save the sport or kill the sport? And I think the bigger issue is that when it comes to combat sports, somehow along the way, for whatever reason, that's a whole nother show, MMA and the Zuffa brother were able to take that away from boxing for whatever reason, however they did it, and bring it over to MMA. And probably a lot of that had to do with concussions and what we thought of the dangers of boxing. And somehow we were able to avoid that belief in MMA, whatever. I'm not sure. But that transition happened. So now boxing does have to find a way to make itself at all relevant. If you are a boxing promoter, you have this to promote. And yeah, this is the best reality TV there is. And this will go on until one of these guys who is famous for something else runs up against another guy who's famous for something else. And the last match I remember in our life was Ray Boom Boom Mancini. And when that happens to a famous guy and not a boxer, then we might see the end of this, because that can happen.
I have another theory on that in my case. Now, obviously, this is drawing a lot of attention to boxing, and it's bringing in new fans. but it's not bringing in, I don't think, necessarily true fans, much as fans of the Paul brothers doing it.
Yes.
So my question in this case, and I want to open it up and I want to get your opinions on this. It's changing the dynamic of the sport. I think we are all pretty much in agreement on that. What happens when the Paul brothers get bored and they decide not to continue with doing boxing? And they move on to pick something else, whatever it might be, whatever that point. What does that do for boxing at that point? Now that the stamp has been left on there, that boxing is now a more flamboyant, Instagrammer versus old timer, where the Paul brothers are now like, you know what, we're going to go delving into archaeology or something completely out of left field. What kind of mark would that leave on boxing if they decided to walk away?
The next celebrity will just come up and do the same thing.
Do you think it would take that, or what do you think, or would one possibly do it at all?
I think that if the Paul brothers continue to do this and do this successfully, they will take their money and run, and then the next person will come along and try this and try the same thing. Some other YouTube star, some other entertainer, whatever. I mean, these types of staged exhibitions and shows aren't new to boxing. What was it, Butterbean? Was that about 20 years ago? So these kinds of fights have been around, and these fans aren't necessarily going to become boxing fans because they were brought in by the Paul brothers, who they're so indistinguishable to me. I keep forgetting who actually fought the other night, whether it was Logan or Jake. I don't know.
It was Jake. I said
Jake was the one that fought this past Saturday. Logan's the one that went with Mayweather.
Yeah. I said Logan at the beginning of the show. I apologize. I was off on
Which, of course, mind you, that was the funniest thing about the entire match on Saturday. Every time they showed Logan Paul, they had underneath him, went the distance with Floyd Mayweather. It's like, I've gone a further distance on my bicycle. All right? Don't tell me you went the distance with Mayweather.
Mayweather could have crushed him if he wanted to. Mayweather would absolutely just destroyed him if he chose to.
So I want to get back to the conversation at hand with what I think boxing will do when these guys go. And I have two names that just jump to mind: Tyson and Woods. And boxing never quite recovered from losing Tyson. That may have been the bigger issue. And golf, a sport that I love, still can't get the ratings it had, can't get the money in the purses that it had with Woods out. So yeah, sometimes these characters, whoever they are, for better or for worse, matter too much. On the other hand, basketball recovered just fine with Jordan leaving. And football has been figured out how to make its players famous and keep the sport rolling. So it's really going to come down to the businessmen behind this. Do they have the skills? And boxing is showing it does not for generations.
They never have.
Well, that becomes the question, like, who's going to be the next homegrown talent? Because that's how you keep things going. When you take someone and you build them up properly, rather than somebody who already has enough clout just jumping in for the fanfare
it's
of
a
it.
hobby,
I remember Jake at the end of the match, he was calling out Tyson Fury and Nate Diaz. And I'm like, no, there is no way either one of them will get in the match with him. Because they are actually homegrown talent. They are not someone that he's just, cherry picking. If they got into the match with him, that would be it.
One of the issues of boxing versus the other sports, like golf, like football, is that boxing is very decentralized. You have multiple authorities, multiple championship organizations, and it's a sport that has always been run by some unsavory characters that were mostly just grifters. So without the lack of a centralized organization or centralized strategy, it kind of creates a one-off, everybody for themselves thing. And that's been a boxing problem for decades. So this is just the latest manifestation of that.
Well, yeah, because it's always under whatever state's boxing commission. There's not an NHL or an NFL or anything that state, throughout the nation. And if there was, maybe things like this wouldn't happen. And because they'd actually want to have some more legitimacy, so this way there isn't investigations. I would like to think that if there was actually a governing body, they would want to make sure that the stuff that happened with, soccer a year or so ago never happens with them, because they know that there's already an unsavory taste with the sport of boxing. So they would try to clean it up. But it's a matter of who you get to actually put on, who you're going to get to govern something like that.
Mhm.
Certainly, I'm not getting anybody with like some long-standing hair who's going to be touting around somebody like he's the greatest of all time. So who do you get?
Well,
Nobody
here's my
wants that
question.
job.
Here's my question to you. I have my own opinion on this, my own thought on it. But do you ever foresee something where the Paul brothers will in fact fight one another? Obi, I'll start with you if you want.
I don't know enough about them and their relationship and what the difference in the money would be pounding each other versus not to answer that question. Pass.
Yeah. All right, JD. Ryan, I'm going to save you for next to last before I have my own thought. But JD, I think do you have an opinion on this? If the logo,
I
would
think
they?
if they get paid enough, they'll do it.
Okay, Ryan.
Would the Paul brothers ever fight each other? Yes. And knowing them, they would probably come up with some nonsense where it ends up as like a complete split decision, and they start arguing about it, and then that leads to a second match, and then it's split decision in the other way, and they'll push it to a third. They will write the story if they want to. Unless someone like FouseyTube comes in and breaks up the fight or knocks one of them out, and before you know it becomes a wrestling match. They will do it, but just because if it's them and only them, they have complete control over the scenario, and they can make it as ridiculous as Jake coming out to YMCA like he did on Saturday.
My thinking on this is that they won't until they jump the shark and have to. Where they can make enough money separately with this, because they're still relevant enough. I think when people start losing interest in it, and they want to, if they decide to continue letting it run, but the industry's lost interest, then at that point, after the shark jump, or better yet, riding the ball, then the two of them will go at it at that point, but not before. They're making too much money. They're getting too much credibility. And also they're too strong promoting the other brothers' fight. So you also have, in this case, two very, very strong influencers teaming up, siblings also, but teaming up to promote the other one's fight. So you're making so much on that. You saw the numbers on what the fight itself was. That does not count all the money that they're getting and the increased followers that they're getting across the world just because of the fact that this is happening. They're making so much money outside of the boxing arena than they are, they're making more money out there than they are actually probably inside, just because of what they can do with merchandising, promotion, social media influence. It grows exponentially every time they do it because they're promoting each other.
I say the McMahons versus the Pauls 4-on-4 death match in a steel cage. Just make it happen and let's just be done with it.
Are we going to possibly have?
I may actually buy that pay-per-view.
See, that I can promote easy.
Well, there you go. So we just need you to tall hair. Obi, any final thoughts for you, sir?
No, I'm good on these two.
All right, so I think we're going to wrap that up a little bit there. Ryan, I know this was your big thing. You can stick, we're probably
I'll
going
stick around. Sure.
Yeah, doesn't say we're going to probably switch over to NFL at this point a little bit. If you have opinions, fire up. If you have anything you want to discuss as well, because I should have talked to you about that prior to the show, throw it in the chat. Let me know, and we'll swing shift as we need to. Brandon, my friend Brandon K, he brought up a really, really good point to me recently, and I need to vent this out as a suffering Giants fan. The Giants obviously are a whopping impressive 4-10, but it's not what they did on the field that is pathetic, although that is habitually pathetic for a team that has had a losing season 8 of the last 9 years. No. We are talking about something else that the New York Giants did that has nothing to do with any player on the field. I don't know if you guys heard about this, but the New York Giants, to their credit, have decided to reward their season ticket holders. They have basically, though I know that season ticket holders have played a lot of money for those 8 games. They got the seating license, they have all of this, and the New York Giants, in their kindness, have offered one free medium soda. So if you were a season ticket holder and you paid for the seating license and you've dropped several $1,000s, whatever it is, you were entitled to one free, not large, not small, but a medium soda at any Giants game.
And you forgot the best part of that story is the fact
Please.
that was panned badly enough before the game, but at the game it got worse when people tried to claim the free soda.
Yeah.
So if it was one per account holder. So if you have 4 tickets, for your family, you only got 1 soda. They wouldn't even
Sure.
for 4 sodas for a soda for each ticket. It's just 1 account, 1 soda. It doesn't matter how many tickets you have.
Yeah.
So 4 people, 1 soda, 4 straws, which you have to ask for the straws nowadays in the state of New Jersey. And most of it's going to be ice anyways, because you're not the one making it; it's someone else.
Yeah, and there was a tweet from another from Mike Francesa of all folks,
Mhm.
who summed it up perfectly. The once proud New York Giants who built a stadium no one likes, ran off or displaced the league's most loyal fan bases with PSLs to build it, made bad hiring decisions at every turn, lost for a solid decade, offer 1 free Pepsi on Fan Appreciation Day.
Yes.
That.
Yeah, that's my team. By the way, I just want to point this out. The season tickets run anywhere from $894 to $6,500, depending on where you're sitting, nosebleed. Right?
Yeah.
The seating license runs anywhere between $1,000 and $20,000. So at a bare minimum for a season ticket holder, you are dropping $894, probably prior to taxes, to have the purpose of being able to watch a team that's currently 4-10 for 8 games a season in the cold.
And how much is the medium soda?
$8.94.
You know what?
It probably
Giant
isn't too
Stadium,
far off.
it's probably like $7 or $8 at Giant Stadium, I would think. Or I'm sorry, MetLife Arena. But yes, you don't get a large. You can request no ice if you choose to. So you don't, so if you don't really want to have, ice on there, you can have it just filled to the brim. Medium soda.
Yeah.
This is probably about 24 ounces, I guess. This is probably about all what you're going to get right there. And you can have your, that one fun Pepsi, Diet Pepsi, Pepsi Max, Sierra Mist, maybe Dr. Pepper. You can do that. But yeah, that's the way of just saying thank you.
So no Dr. Pepper for you. You might get a Mountain Dew.
Okay. That's okay. But for you guys, you loyal fans out there that have spent thousands of dollars of your own money to watch a team that's 4-10, that has had 8 losing seasons out of the last 9, free soda.
Yeah.
And if you're wasting it on a Sierra Mist, you've already lost that life. I'm sorry.
So I just had to go into that because of the fact that it's just, honestly, it's just unbridled disarray for a team I've been a fan of for 40 years now. And please.
The infamous waiting list was the stuff of legend, of the 25-year season ticket waiting list that the Giants had. It's all gone. They pushed them out. A lot of people gave up their tickets when they switched to the new stadium with the PSLs. The ones who did stay around have been, why would you pay for this garbage?
I'm literally,
you have destroyed loyal fan base, and I've said about the Giants before that they're repeating the bad old days, and John Mara is repeating the mistakes of his father from the 60s and 70s. So you know what was the side effect of all that? Of 2 garbage football teams for a decade plus? That's why we have so many Cowboys fans in the tri-state area, because the Cowboys were on TV every week and winning Super Bowls. Now, so why would anybody be a Giants fan if the Giants, if winning teams?
You can say so. It's okay.
No,
the Cowboys right now.
That is how that happened. That's all that America's team garbage started. But you're going to see that again with the Patriots and the Chiefs, with a generation of Patriots and Chiefs fans. And fans growing up in the area that won't either don't care about football or don't care about a local team. So
to be fair, the Chiefs I think have earned it. Patriots, say what you will about the Patriots. Say what you will about Brady.
Yeah,
but. I'd say at least if the team is good, you should be able to represent, regardless if it's home state or not. Because I think the home state mentality really does start to hurt some of the brands. Like I think about like the Philadelphia Eagles and them being like a home state team, and then you look at Philadelphia people, and it becomes like, yeah, no, that fits. that fits. And then look at what we have here in Jersey. The thing is, our stadium is pretty much split between two teams. We have Giants and we have Jets. And I'm almost afraid to maybe say, well, maybe I should start watching some Jets games. Because then I feel like I'm just like betraying everything I've been taught ever since I was a kid. However, when you look at the teams, maybe I would be better off as a Jets fan.
No, you're
That's
not.
just homepage
I'm
mentality.
just fan, I'm telling you, you're not.
By the way, Ryan, I just want to point out,
Well, at this point, it's a flip of a coin, you know?
Jets fan, Eagles fan. I just want to point that out there. So, but Obi, you got
the Giants fans. The Giants,
Yes, I got.
in the
Yeah,
Mariners
I mean,
are not getting as much garbage as they should be getting. For as bad as this is, all the stuff with the medium soda and all that, the Giants have been lucky that they share a stadium with a team that manages to stink with more flair, so it gets the headlines.
Obi.
So I think that this is this is typical of American business in general. Like I think that to knock the Giants for doing what people do, like we're going to charge you a lot of money and we're going to give you 1 point for every dollar you spend, but a point is only worth a cent. It's pretty much the same thing here. We gave you $800 to buy a ticket, and we're going to give you $8 back. I mean, it's right in line with American business. What I do think is more important about the Giants, and something we discussed earlier, is that they're saying that's it. We're hanging up Daniel Jones for the season. We're not risking the neck. Let's see what you have next year. I mean, I think by hanging him up for the season, they pretty much have said, we are committed to him next year. We're going to give him one more year. I think that's the bigger story that should be looked at because they're the kind of the first team this season to be like, you know what? We're the team that's already looking at next year. No one else really has quite done that yet. Maybe Jacksonville's not even Jacksonville.
Houston.
Yeah.
Detroit every year is waiting for next year.
Yeah. No, it's waiting for next year as opposed to like saying we are now starting next year. Houston has started Mills all season. Houston and Jacksonville were already about next year. But the Giants are the first team that had a glimmer of hope before the season began. Who's finally like, boom, we're resting players. Resting? No, we're benching. He's done. See you next year. New Orleans didn't do it yet. They had Kamara. They got the big win. And so, we had a lot of great football this weekend, and we're here talking about the New York Giants again and the New York Jets again. And why? We had such a fantastic week of football, and you bring up that stinker of a team on that crappy stadium
because they're my stinker of a team in my crappy stadium, 10 minutes down the road from me, not even, But it was one of those things. Like I said, it was just hilarity upon hilarity. That I mean, okay, you talked about 1% return, like 1% cash back. But the difference is that when you have a crap product, offering a free soda does not offset the thousands of dollars that are put in on it. It's not like basically, I mean, Robin just went out and just bought out the lease on her car. She put it on plastic, the down payment because she wanted the points on it. Fine. Okay. But she's getting quality in return. The Giants are not quality. The Jets are not quality. The Eagles are borderline quality. The Eagles are borderline quality. Depends on what happens tonight. I mean, we got Tuesday night football, which I am all in favor of, and I want to actually open that up a little bit. Probably the next topic there. But I want to but there's quality in basically in getting money back or getting purchases back for good, for something like that. Not for what you're seeing every Sunday with that team, with those teams.
Well, yeah, I'm surprised they haven't taken on the Yankees model where it's like practically every game is like a special, like a bad day or a bobblehead day, or it's like anytime you go to that stadium, you're getting something. They're adding incentive to the game regardless of how the team plays. The Giants, what do they offer besides this soda? And that even then, you said it was only to like the season ticket holders. What about all the other fans that go there and maybe just have the one ticket?
It's $100 per ticket minimum price for upper tier, by the way. I just want to point that out.
Yeah. So what do they get for that?
Do they have any non-season ticket holders?
You can buy. You can buy through like StubHub.
The people who bought the tickets from the season ticket holders who sold them on StubHub because they don't even bother going to the games anymore this year. And also, promotions versus not. It's one thing when you have 81 home games that you need to get people out for, whether it's the Yankees or any other baseball team. It's another thing when you have 8 and people are just going to. You know what the Giants are doing? They're doing the Knicks model, which is to do absolutely nothing, and people are still going to show up anyway, regardless of how bad the product is.
Oh, that's like almost Pavlovian. Oh.
Yeah, in a matter of speaking, it is. I mean, the Giants right
works.
now are fourth. Basically, I'm looking at the home numbers here. The Giants right now are 4th overall in average attendance at 74,448. The Jets are 6th, by the way. The Giants have a better average attendance than the Kansas City Chiefs do.
Because they have
and
a
they're
bigger
behind
stadium.
Denver, Green Bay. What's that?
Only because they have a bigger stadium. Didn't you say that they're actually in the bottom of the league as far as percentage?
Percentage
of butts in seats.
Actually, no, they're really not. They're 90%, which isn't terrible.
Yeah, but there's some teams that are over 100%. If I recall from last time when we saw it.
Right now, look at the Giants are 26th overall out of 32.
That's pretty bad.
The Jets are but here's the funny thing about this: they're still better than New Orleans. They're still better than Pittsburgh, the Steelers, on percentage.
Okay.
By the way, you want to take a shot? Basically, I'm going to give it all 3 of you. Do you want to take a shot at the worst team and a shot at what the percentage is as I'm looking at it on ESPN?
Washington, 80%.
I was going to say Washington, yeah.
Washington, yes, but your guys are way over the top on the number. 64.5%.
Wow.
Not even 65%. So that's going to open up, in this case, the last thing I wanted to go into is we got about 10, 12 minutes left. Are you ready for some football? A Tuesday night party. So I want to open this up to you guys because I want to get some thoughts here. Do you like Tuesday night football? Would you be open to it regularly if there was a way to do it safely and properly?
No.
Honestly, no.
I mean, what would be the point? I barely watch Thursday when they do that.
Exactly.
Okay, that was a fast as heck response. I was expecting that to drag out longer than it did, and you're like, no.
And we're all the same. If it wasn't for unmentionables, I wouldn't watch Thursday night.
Well, yeah.
Agreed. I mean, I've watched so much bad football this year in all the primetime games. Like, I mean, yes, we occasionally get a gem. Like, you occasionally see a gem in the primetime games, like the
Kansas City
Chargers game the other night.
Yeah.
That was awesome. But then you follow that up with a dud like Saints Bucks, where the most entertaining part of that game was watching Brady smash his tablet. So.
Brady smashes his tablet.
It was one of those games. It was like I only had it on for a few minutes, and then was just like this. Suffering Jets fan. It was like a Tim Tebow game where where it sets the game of football back, like watching a game from 1942 with only runs. But that's what you get with this Taysom Hill and the Saints. And a defense the Saints defense shutting down Brady the way they did. Kudos to them. It was a awesome game from a total game standpoint, just not an entertaining product to watch.
Fair. And I think that's part of the issue that the NFL has right now, especially with Thursday night, because every team is required to get a Thursday night game, which if there's any positive to that means that Joe Buck is mandatorily contractually required to broadcast a Jaguars game. And I kind of like that. Because the Jags typically are the most unpopular team in the NFL year after year. It takes them going to London half the time to actually get in decent attendance there. And now they are without a head coach. Nice little segue, right? So rumors have been coming out that Urban Meyer kicked one of the players, a kicker specifically. I'm curious to get, if you guys actually saw anything about that or have any input on that. And what does it mean for him and where's he going? And what does it mean for Jacksonville and where are they going?
So I think it's actually beyond allegedly. I believe it's been admitted to as part of the lawsuit with his contract. So I believe but I don't know what it means to kick a person. Like, did he kick him? Like, just like, yo, come on, I'm the coach that can do that. Or did he wind up and kick the guy in like the ribs? Like, I don't even know what that means. But basically Urban Meyer went in there with he was going to rule the roost, and for about 8 games, the young quarterback there was doing crappy and going, I guess this is how it is in the NFL. I thought it was going to be different. And I just have the feeling that Trevor Lawrence talked to a few other young quarterbacks and said, no. And they said, no, dude, you're number one draft pick. You have say in this league. You're not a college kid anymore. And he went, really? And then they benched his running back and he went to Shah Khan and said, that's it. I'm done. And Shah went, oh, my quarterback. I get that. And made the change. That's just my impression of what happened behind the scenes.
The worst malpractice of all of this is Urban Meyer royally screwing up Trevor Lawrence's development. But I will say that there was a lot of articles floating around the end of last season of, oh, Trevor Lawrence is actually better off in Jacksonville because the Jets are a quarterback graveyard, which, while not wrong.
I mean, how many quarterbacks did they go through 1 year?
Bad, but at least where the Jets are a better run organization than Jacksonville, which is really saying something. I'm also mildly entertained by the fact that for the second year in a row, a coach who was well recognized as calling for the dumbest play in football, Darrell Bevell, former offensive coordinator of the Seattle Seahawks, who single-handedly lost a Super Bowl, has now for the second year in a row failed forward to an interim head coach position in the NFL. And Shad Khan might be dumb enough to keep him on if they go, say, 2-2 over the rest of the season. They may actually. It's amazing, but also Urban Meyer, Urban Meyer, Bobby Petrino, and Lou Holtz. All three of them lasted 13 games in the NFL, despite being quality college coaches and are the gold standard for face planting. And Urban Meyer was worse than all of them. The other two were 3-10 in those 13 games. Meyer was 2-11, and he's made them. And he still has no. If you hear any of the quotes, there's no self-reflection. No, yeah, I did something wrong. Everything. He's still blaming everybody else, blaming the assistants, blaming the coach, blaming everybody. The man is taking no accountability whatsoever.
You know, I almost have to think that's like more common than not, isn't it? I mean, how many times do you get like a new coach and they have just the most exceptional first year possible? It's like, I think at least for the first year, there's got to be like a learning curve.
George Seifert.
That's a name. That's a name from the island. But yeah, unfortunately, basically the Urban Meyer cycle, if we can get it posted up there, that'd be great. If it can't, so be it. But it's basically it's a constant cycle. Get hired, find success, scandal arises, steps down, starts a new job as a TV analyst, rumor for open coaching job, gets hired, and then the cycle continues again. This is the literal Urban Meyer cycle, year in and year out. You know, wherever.
But we didn't have fine success this time.
Well, this is the first, and this is also the first time that he got fired before his headaches came back.
That is true, but it's one of those things where he still got canned anyway. And you mentioned, I think it was JD, I think you may have mentioned that it stunted Trevor Lawrence's growth, perhaps. You know, and that's where bad management, and I'm sorry, Zach Wilson's part of that too. Agreed. You know, where you have a bad team, run team that you destroy quality and potential, and then ironically enough, blame the player for it. You blame the player for not being able to, Sanchez wasn't up to par. Darnold wasn't up to par. And now, Zach Wilson isn't up to par. There was a saying I remember, from, my business days. After a while, it's not your people.
Yes.
And that's the phrase that comes to mind here when I see that. I see it with the Giants. After a while, it's not your people. And if you're not willing to accept that and make changes, you will always have, recycle in, recycle out, and it will never change because you haven't changed. And that's where, please.
Sorry. If you swapped Zach Wilson and Mac Jones, the results of those respective teams would be the same. Where Zach Wilson would be a Rookie of the Year candidate, and the riding high with the Patriots, and Mac Jones would be getting the stones beaten out of him. It is a team culture. There is a lot of toxic team cultures around these and organizational cultures at these teams like Jacksonville, like the Jets, like Detroit, Cleveland. It's all the names change, but it's all the same.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to a certain extent, I agree with that. But then we do have these times when we see teams pull themselves out of that and completely change the culture. And the crazy thing is, it's not always the owner who changed. The team that immediately comes to mind, of course, is the Saints. They've had the same owner from when they were the Aints to when they had Drew Brees and Peyton and Sean Payton. They were great. Cincinnati's a weird one because they seem to somehow, they were horrific, and then they got Dalton, and then they were just mediocre, and now they're mediocre again. So sometimes it is the organization, and sometimes it's the two guys that matter most. It's the head coach and the quarterback. And you say Zach Wilson would have worked out great in New England, and I actually don't doubt you, but I don't know for sure if it was just the luck that Zach Wilson wasn't as good as everyone thought. Mac Jones was a little better than everyone thought, and then he landed in a good spot. We'll never know the answer to those until we get what if to be a real world that we can go, multiverse that we can look in on. But I think it just sometimes it's the organization, sometimes it's what the organization has been given as tools, and sometimes it's both.
Fair. So we got to start wrapping this up. We got about 3 minutes left, but I wanted to open it up for any final thoughts from the three of you guys, if you had anything before I start my closeout. Ryan, start with you, man, if you got anything.
I mean, it's hard not to listen to today's episode and see that there isn't just like an underlining thread of, regardless of the sport, there is just the underlining corruption in anything, whether it be boxing, whether it be football, baseball. It's just, it's getting to the point where I almost don't know how long sports is going to be like a traditional pastime anymore, because now it just seems like it might as well just be anything else worth gambling on. That's like, I'd rather go to a casino because it's light and flashing and it's a little bit more exciting than what I would get into a field. It's like, I don't know when the next time is I'll actually spend money to go see a live sports performance of anything, because it almost never seems worth it.
That's why sports ratings are down across the board, along with everything in television, but in sports in particular, a lot of
so until the balls start exploding, or there's like shootouts on the field, no one's gonna care.
So I'm going to take my final statement to go the other way. I don't think you need sports to be more violent. I think when it comes to sports, and specifically when I think of sports, what we're talking about is unscripted. Right now, it's going to gaming. And so I think it's less real violence to the people who are taking part. They want to be able to do their game, their sport, win, be competitive, and then walk home without a headache or concussion or broken bones. And so that's I think the next place we're going.
Could be. And I think it's one of those things that there's so many more options than there were 30 years ago. 30 years ago, a lot of people never even had cable. Now, I mean, look at what you have here alone in your hand. And I think that's the big difference. There's so many more opportunities, so many more things you can work with, that it takes away from what sports used to be, because honestly, people don't have the patience to sit there and watch it anymore. We got about a minute left, so I want to wrap this up real quick. Coming up in 2 hours, we do have Tales from the Film Set. So if you like Mr. Ryan O'Regan up there, guess what? He's going to be back again in 2 hours.
Double, baby, double.
Yeah, two Ryans for the price of zero, because you're not paying for this anyway. But yeah, we're going to be discussing alongside JT McGuire and Rob Leckington. We are going to be breaking down Spider-Man No Way Home. It will be a spoiler-filled review. We're going to put it at the bottom. These are spoilers. Go away if you don't want to hear them. We will also be previewing the new Matrix movie, which I will be unavailable tomorrow starting about 10 a.m. because I'm going to knock that out. And then tomorrow night for Tales from the Film Set on Twitch, we are doing the watch party for the finale of Hawkeye, Episode 6. Will he be home in time for Christmas, or only in his mind? Basically, so we're going to basically react to that, because we won't have seen that until that point. But anyway, wrapping this up, as always, my name is Scott Churchson, Mr. Obi Spencer, Mr. JD Walker, and of course, Mr. Ryan O'Regan. This is the Sports Den. Thank you for tuning in. Pop in a couple hours if you feel like talking about some Spider-Man and also everything else we got on tap. Until then, stay awesome.
Thank you.
Not all.